Um, so first up, we are going to have Allison Gladfelter. She's going to talk to us about how to find calls for proposals. And Allison, I have your slides up here. I don't know if you can take over and or tell me when you want to advance.
Looks like I can do it, so thank you. I was just checking to see. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Great. So a lot of what I'm going to share with you, I took from the OSP website. So I have the, I don't know if we're sharing our slides or not. You'll see I have lots of links up here. So I don't know if we're posting these.
Yes, we are sharing slides, yes.
Okay, great. So I have a lot of links to all of these things so that you can go to them directly. But some different resources to find external funding. So you're motivated, you've got your tips, you're ready to go. Let's go find some grants. So you could use a database or a search engine to find some grants. NIU subscribes to SPIN, which is a federal and non-federal grant funding search engine. And I'll talk a little bit more about SPIN in a second. You could also go directly to grants.gov to find some grants, and it'll give you the information, the calls for proposals, deadlines, info, etc. You could also find proposals by following RSS feeds, listservs, or social media. And so I learned that the Department of Ed has its own Twitter account, so you can find some grants through these different means as well. And I've linked, so hopefully you'll have the slides and can click on the links. And then you could also, I think Ben mentioned, you can also go to the agency websites directly. So I just linked here the Illinois Department of Human Services and the Illinois State Board of Ed as well, and they will share grant proposals as well. Okay, so I mentioned SPIN. So SPIN is a search engine, and it's a subscription-based one, but NIU pays for the subscription, so you have access to it using your NIU credentials. So if you want, SPIN lets you save your search terms, and it also lets you save your terms, and then it will auto search for you, and then send you emails when grants related to your search terms are posted. So it's a nice way for you to, you can search once and then it will automate from then on and send you emails of like, hey, there's a new grant that was posted on such and such key term that you had searched previously. So that's kind of nice. And then there's no limit to the number of automated searches you can have SPIN do for you. So if you have lots of areas of interest that you're in or different key terms for the area that you're looking for, there's no limit. You can have it do it as many times as you want. Okay, so how do you log into SPIN? So you have to go to the InfoEd portal, and I have the link here. And then for me, I don't know why, but for some reason I always go to that and then type in my login info down here, and you're not supposed to do that. Like, go to this little tiny click here to use your NIU credentials to log in. And then once you're logged into InfoEd, you'll see SPIN down here on the bottom left. Okay, so what does SPIN look like? So I just pulled it up on my account and typed in the word autism, because that's what I study. And so you'll see that it pulls up all kinds of external funding. It found 50. I just copied and pasted a screenshot. So here's the Simons Foundation is a private foundation grant, and it shows you who the sponsor is, if there's a call number, and then when is the grant due, how much is it worth for, and you could and then you can save it and come back to it later if you want. Here's another one. This is through the Department of the Army. So we all know they've got money. So anyway, it's a nice way to have it automated and search easily for you. And NIU has provided a quick start guide, some tips on how to add filters, guides on how to use SPIN to search for you. So all of that's available on the NIU RIPS website under the Finding Funding tab, which I've also linked here. You can also contact your SBA staff rep to help you find fundings as well. So if you don't know who your rep is, you can go to RIP's website and use the drop-down box to find it, find who your rep is, and have them help you as well. Okay, and that was my very quick how to find funding. So hopefully making up for some of the lost time there.
Beautiful, thanks. I think Karen's next. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was on mute again. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about an overview of some of the campus grant resources. There we go. Okay, so CISLL has a few things. Like Britt had mentioned earlier, we have POP grants for fall 2021 that are funding for final preparations of a grant proposal submission. And we also have writing retreats, which are usually twice a month. These just give affiliates some time to write. Affiliates tend to like or have reported they like a dedicated time to write. And there's also an opportunity to ask your fellow affiliates questions and share your experiences either about writing grant proposals or publications in general. One of the biggest resources for information on campus is Sponsored Program Administrations, or SPA. I usually find them if I just search NIU SPA. It comes right up. So they have a lot of resources for different stages of the grant process. And they also have staff to assist you throughout the process. So this may overlap a little bit with what Allison had reported. They have people to help you with proposal development throughout the submission process and then managing the award. And there's a lot of information on their website. And I'm just going to give you some snapshots of what they have on their website to give you a sense of what you can find there. So Allison mentioned staff contacts. And there's people that you can contact for preparing and submitting a proposal and various stages of the process. They have a lot of general information. For example, in the frequently asked questions page, you can find a lot of information. For example, one of the contacts is a research development specialist, and they're really, if you give them enough time, they're help to edit and your proposal draft and review the narrative against the agency requirements, which is they're sometimes really difficult to navigate. So that's a very helpful service. And they can also help you to identify agencies to send a proposal to. Here's an example. They're developing a proposal informational page. So they have information about getting started, finding calls, developing collaborations, about specific agencies. So you see there's a lot of information that they have available. SPA also has a number of seminars about grant writing, and two that are sort of ongoing are the PI Academy and the Grants Administration and Management series. So the PI this year Academy is including topics like grant writing and the art of science communications. And then the GAMS series is, tends to be what you're doing with a grant after it's awarded. Another service on campus that's associated with SPA is the Research Methodology Services. And Alicia was here earlier. She directs that, but they provide a lot of services in helping people to get down a research design. And, oh, hi, Alicia, you're still here. An analysis plan, ending up those sections in the proposal, and a lot of other services related to that. And then any assistance for proposal development is free of charge, and I just ask that you write them into your proposal to help and, with services like doing analyses and reporting results. Anything else I missed, Alicia, that you'd add?
No, I would just add that our team is building, so we have analysts and consultants across a couple of different colleges. And so we do our best to do a match, not just in terms of the analysis or evaluation strategy, but also try to get somebody who might also be aligned with content if needed. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, so that was just a real quick overview of some of the services we have, a SPA website, and research methodology services. There's a wealth of information out on the SPA website. So now I'll pass it over to Keith, who's going to give you some insight into the grant review process.
Well, thank you, Karyn. All right, let's begin here. Well, I have to say that some of this content will overlap. It's a fuzzy boundary between my talk and earlier things, but I suppose that's okay. You know, the SPA is wonderful. It's such a great resource that we have here on campus. And so, you know, when we talk about general steps, you know, that would be the first place I would go, and they can guide you there. And Allison did a great job in finding a great a grant agency. You can always use grants.gov, and I believe that they even have an app. Is that right, Allison? That you can download on your phone. And so you'll need to find a call. And one thing I'd like to emphasize is this: read very carefully the request for application, or the RFA. From my experience and some sort of embarrassing experiences with some other folks, is that you can work very hard and write a grant, but you missed something critical. And these RFAs, these calls for proposals, can be very dense and long. And so it's very important that you read these applications very carefully. Often, most of the time, the granting agencies will want to see a letter of intent. Often it's suggested, sometimes it's mandatory. And Melanie had said, and I think Christine as well, talking with grant officers with the grant agency is very important because they can help you find your way through the process. And so I would definitely emphasize that. When you're writing the grant, pay attention to the deadlines. And sometimes we think we can do more in a week than we might really can. So make sure you leave yourself time. And I would keep RIPS and CISLL in the loop. We're here to help you in your granting endeavors. So on top of this page, you see NIH, and there's a, what do you call it, a hyperlink there. We won't go into the hyperlink here, but if you click on these things, it will go into these different grant, in this case, it's NIH. And most of these granting agencies will provide detailed information on how to write your grant. You know, they want grants to be successful. And so not just NIU, but seek help from the granting agency and poke around into their websites. Now, a grant from NIH, and I'm going to go over NIH, IES, and NSF, and I want you to see if you can spot common themes for what they are looking for. And for For example, NIH, they want a page on specific aims, plus around 12 pages of the what they call the research strategy, which has 3 main components. Significance of your project, how will your work advance scientific knowledge on an important problem, will it drive the field? Innovation, where are there novel concepts and approaches and methods that you are developing or testing, very forward-looking ideas. And your approach, which is basically your framework, what Christine said, your logic plan, your design, methods, and analyses. And so these are the 3 components from NIH. Now, if we go to IES, which is on Educational Science, Institute for Education Science, their components you have an abstract, a summary, and in the narrative, which is the main body of your proposal, will have a section on significance. This includes intellectual and practical merits. Intellectual merits is kind of, I think, as academics, we are centered on some particular hypotheses or set of hypotheses or research questions, but it should have a practical implication. How will it help society as well? And in the narratives, you have a research plan, which is kind of familiar to us. It's almost like a method section of a empirical paper. And of course, your personnel and PIs, the principal investigators and co-PIs are listed. And we heard about consultants, and consultants can exist on the grant writing process, but also consultants on the project, on the grant project. Consultants will help you provide advice on what to do, where to go in terms of your project. And the personnel could be content experts. I know, for example, Britt works with biologists. Britt is very smart, but I don't think she's a biologist. So she needs some content experts or perhaps teachers or things like that. And there's, of course, these other things that you need, the bibliography, facilities, and resources. And so when you are writing grant, you have to kind of think about what do I have at my in my lab, my department, my college, my university, in terms of making the grant sellable and work. And this involves having the right equipment. Do you need new equipment? Do you have the equipment? Levels of commitment and decimation. I'm sorry, planning. I'm sorry. Granting agencies are, they want good press. They want to make sure that you have a plan on giving out your findings to the world. And I think that has changed quite a bit in the last 20 years. And, I think at one time it was good just to say, oh, I'll publish the results. But now it's more about publishing results, conferences, websites, social media, things like that. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. NSF. And again, you might see a similarity of these granting agencies and what they want. A project summary or an abstract, you have a project description, plan of work, what will you do, why will you do it, and this intellectual merit and broader impacts. And this is related to earlier about practical versus intellectual merit. Intellectual merit is how we'll drive the field, and in terms of acquiring knowledge of that area. And what researchers need to do when they write grants is to think about their broader impacts. How will that research impact society? And often, at least in my experience, this is something that researchers are less familiar with. They are focused on one particular hypothesis, but you have to dig it out to them. How will that really impact society? And this broader impacts is very important for all of these federally funded granting agencies. The reason is that the money from your neighbor's taxes will be going towards you, and they know that. And we know that funding for science, can go up and down across the years, but it's limited. And so it's very important that you emphasize how your research will help the world. Again, you need personnel and facilities and resources and things like that. Okay, well, before I continue, Lindsay or anyone, Britt, Allison, would you like to add anything to that?
I thought it was very clear. I don't have any
Thank you.
questions or comments.
All righty. So, well, just like when you send in a paper to a journal, you go through a review process. Of course, grants get reviewed as well. And what happens typically is that each of the proposals are assigned to 2 or 3 reviewers, and reviewers are given a rubric to score them on. There's both sort of a qualitative and a quantitative form that they can write out, giving you scores, and also words. They provide you with some feedback on your proposal, and the scores are aggregated from these reviewers, and there's a process where based on these scores, there's a prioritization process where only the best of the proposals go through a full, what we call a panel review. In this panel review, at least in my experience, and I'm sure Britt and others can elaborate on that, I may have another slide on that. Is these folks are experts around a table, and they discuss your proposal. And I think I will get back to that. In terms of a scoring rubric for IES, you can see these different categories, significance, which they sort of glue together, intellectual and practical merits. NSF separates them. There is a research plan, the personnel, and the resources. And the scoring that they use is usually, well, at least for IES, is a 1 through best, a 1 through 7 scale. And they get translated in this reverse scoring where the proposal is scored on 1 through 5. 1, if you have a score of 1, that means it's really great. 5 is, no, not so great. And so generally, for example, for IES, if you get a score between 1 and 2, it's, good, fundable. 2 to 3, it's fixable. And that's probably something where you would go back at the next cycle, armed with comments and feedback from the reviews to try again. I know that Karyn, Britt, and I are doing that currently. And so if you don't get the grant a first time, which is common, don't give up. try again. And then it says 3.5, don't come back to us. Well, okay, that's kind of harsh. Basically they use these scores to determine which proposals get a full panel review. And those are the ones that may become fundable. In the panel discussion, we have typically there's a chair who's chairing the panel. You have the reviewers, the panel members, and the synthesizer who kind of takes notes and try to organizes all the comments into feedback. And the process is, it's typically what happens is that for each proposal, there's a lead reviewer that will summarize the project to the rest of the panel. There'll be another person in the room, maybe two other people in the room that's read the same proposal that can chime in and elaborate. But it's a very quick 5 minutes, depending on how you look at it. It could be a long 5 minutes, but it's a 5 minutes in which you, as a grant writer, you want to make sure that the person, this unknown person to you, can summarize your grant. And so when you're writing a grant, you have to be very clear about the importance of the grant, so a person who can easily summarize it and tell the rest of the panel how great your grant is. And then the panel members discuss, and they're not easy. They're not pushovers, and they will ask very critical questions. And so you want to make sure all your ducks are in a row when you submit your grant. Now, in terms of the grant review processes, well, there's a lot of words here. I'll just go over these. And these reviewers are overcommitted, overworked, and tired. They're sort of critical.
That's a fact, Keith. It's a fact.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's stories. Yeah. That's true. So you want to, when you write a grant, you want to make sure you keep this in mind, right? Because they may not be really interested in your work. So you have to beef up how your work is of interest and of importance. That will perk them up. And you want to make their job easy. You do not want to piss off a reviewer. And I like to underline that. If I could bold that sentence, I would. Okay. And so you want to make sure your prose is clearly written, it's well organized. You have section headers and breaks, and well-designed flowgrams, diagrams, and charts, which is nice because they don't take up word count, and often they're in an appendix or something. And someone circled and avoid irritating them. Yes, and so at one time, a lot of people would just use these smaller fonts and narrower margins, and I think that's prevented nowadays. But you don't want to think you can get something by the reviewers and the reviewing process. Putting information in the wrong section, and this can be sort of tough because sometimes something in maybe a method section might be very part of the importance section, and so it has to be in 2 or 3 different places. And so you have to be mindful of where things go. Don't mislabel reference, blah, blah, blah. submitting an application that's sloppy or full of typos, that doesn't look good. You know, we know as well, in the psychology department, you know, impressions matter. And so if you have typos in there, oh, you know, that's just an ouch. You know, so you want to be very careful with all of these things. And now with this in mind, let me speed up here. So here's some take-home tips for everyone who's going to be writing a grant. Read the grant application closely. Please take it from me. That's very important. We've already gone over the last 3% takes 97% of the time. Don't think you can write a grant in a week or even a month. It can take 6 months. And this hasn't been mentioned, but it's helpful if you have pilot data, proof of concepts. You know, you can show something that can work. And get feedback from peers and at NIU folks, sponsored projects, things like that. Write with a rubric in mind, and someone's writing CISLL by feedback. We can be your feedback. Okay, we've done that in the past, and we are committed to that. So let us help you. So yes, so when you write with the rubric in mind. That will help the reviewers because they are rating each of these sections. So you want to make sure you nail each of those sections. Figure out your budget with OSP and don't delay. It can take some time, what you need, things like that. And think about your team members. I generally think interdisciplinary work is the way to go. And so I think it looks good if you have team members for different types of expertise. Alicia's group is wonderful because they have this reputation and the knowledge about statistics and methods, and that's very helpful. And at least for IES, it looks good when people who are doing your statistical analyses are different from the PIs, you know, so it's appearance of honesty there and openness there. And so these are some tips that we came up with. And if anyone would like to add things, and Melanie pointed out with graphics experience, and in fact, I think Christine had this beautiful thing that she posted. And I agree with Melanie. They can really polish a proposal. You know, impressions matter. And I believe that's all I have.
I could add one thing. That was great, Keith. I could add one thing is NSF, I've been on a review panel for NSF, and they don't have that stats person in there, but as bad. But in IES grants, they have a stats person that could be an economist or could be somebody that has nothing to do with. I was a reading writing panel, and they didn't know anything about the content, and they didn't care about the content, but they wanted to make sure you did your power analysis extremely appropriately with the most. So somebody like Alicia's team would be really helpful because they're reading it outside your discipline, possibly from a stats perspective. And so that's really, really helpful. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, you know, I'm an old fart, you know, and statistics change across time, and things that are statistically relevant today didn't exist earlier. So it's good to get the latest information on these statistical analyses. So keep Allison and her group in mind.
Okay. All right. Any other comments here? Questions? Did we cover what you were looking for? So the next point is we won't have time to do the breakout group because I do want to end exactly at 1. But you could put in chat and we will save chat any things that, or you could say them out loud now in the last 5 minutes. Any obstacles that you've encountered or anticipate in the grant writing process, something we didn't cover that you wished we would have, we can get back to you. Any types of support that you would find helpful, things that we're doing that you want us to continue. So if you could just write those in chat or speak them out, and we have to actually save the chat if you do that, because it doesn't save automatically. So does anybody have any obstacles or things that they wish we had covered, or things you've found useful and you want us to continue? And that's why you do breakout groups. Be able to see a sample. Yes, so thanks so much, Marissa. It's nice to see you here. It would be really nice if some people can share, and I'm going to check with my, I don't know if you guys remember Paul, oh my God, what's his name now? I can't remember. Who did the logic?
Dawkins,
Paul
right?
Dawkins. Yeah, Paul Dawkins. I'm on his, it's also good to have an expert panel on your grants when you get a grant, to have an expert panel. And I'm on his expert panel. He successfully just got an NSF to study task models of what do you call this? Proofs in math. And so what's the point of that? I'm going to ask him if I can share his grant, and I'm going to ask the two people that I'm on with the other grants, the McDonald and the NSF, to see if I can share them. It would be nice if other people were willing to share successful or unsuccessful grants. You know, maybe I could ask Joe to get the first draft of his PD whatever. What was it, Stephen? PD star, until it eventually became, what's his newest one?
On par.
On par. Thanks. Yeah, I could ask Joe if he'll get the PD star that ended up on par. That ended up Alicia's baby. If anybody has grants that they're willing to share, please send them to me. Oh, got it on the third submission. Yep. Oh, but be aware. Be aware. If you do submit a grant, you might actually get it. So be sure you want to do it. My first grant, I just did it because we had to write a grant, and I got it, and it was very, very scary. So I think just sometimes it takes 3, but sometimes it's accidentally get it on the first one. So be careful. You might get it.
Hey, I just had a quick comment. OSP now has a grant proposal, a sample grant proposal library that NIU faculty can look at. So
Where is it?
I just am pasting the link right there. So hopefully that works for everyone.
Perfect, thanks. And it would also be nice if some people would be willing to send to CISL's email any grants that they don't mind sharing. Thanks, Allison.
Yeah.
Okay, great. If there's nothing else, thank you all for coming, and thank you all for participating in one way or another. And we'll get back to you on this idea of maybe getting special ed and diversity, like subgroup going. But thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, how do you save? Does anybody know how to save the chat?
My screen says record the messages in the chat.
Yeah, it records. Oh, recording messages in this chat. Recording messages in this chat. I wonder how you get them then.
When you watch, it's not a transcript. It's when you watch the recording, you can tell it that you also want to view the chat, I think.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like when you watch the movie, yeah, it'll just show the chat as well.
Okay,
I just grabbed the text from it too to paste.
Oh,
in.
good. That was smart. Okay, thank you all.
Do we have
great
a
job,
few
Karyn.
minutes to talk about some of the breakout stuff?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me stop the recording.